Everyone, welcome to our 101 Recruitment Marketing webinar with Glassdoor and Enhanced Media. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. My name's Dania and I'll be moderating this webinar and sharing some housekeeping tips with you. Joining us today, we have Mallory Dose, our sales manager for Glassdoor EMEA, and Giles Guest, the managing director at Enhanced Media. Our speakers today will be sharing insights into the importance of employer branding and how recruitment marketing and employer branding work together as one. So just a couple of housekeeping tips for you. You can connect to audio using your computer, microphone, and speakers, or you may select to use telephone after using the webinar. All of your lines will be muted so that we avoid background noise, and if you have any questions, we will get back to them at the end, so write them in the questions panel at the bottom. Don't forget to use our hashtag Glassdoor, and you can interact with us throughout the webinar on social channels. So without further ado, I'm going to pass on to Mallory Dose.
Hi everyone, thank you so much for joining our webinar today. My agenda for my portion, I'm going to talk through what recruitment marketing really is, some steps to create an effective strategy, why it's important to have a multi-channel approach, and then I'm going to pass it over to Giles and we'll save Q&A for the end. Like Dania said, type in any questions at any time to the wall. So what is recruitment marketing? We hear this everywhere, and it's important because recruiting and marketing are really becoming one and the same. As you know, as a recruiter, you have to be able to market your strengths and message this to the talent that you're trying to reach. Recruitment marketing includes all communication that an organization uses to attract talent to its workforce. We've moved past the day of posting a job and really praying that the right person will apply. We know people, they're not just going to apply to any job that they see, they're going to do their research, kind of like they would do when shopping for a car, picking out which restaurant they want to eat at, or planning a vacation. Your next great hire depends on your ability to market yourself apart from the competition and have your brand in front of talent at the right moment. So what I'm trying to say is that ensuring the right audience is seeing the right message at the right time is what recruitment marketing is all about. So steps to creating an effective strategy. First of all, you need to develop a strong employer brand. So what is your company vision? What's your story? And really what makes you a unique place to work? Your employer value proposition, or your AVP, is really the complete package of why a job seeker would want to work at your organization. So you need to think like a marketer and have a consistent brand across all of your different channels that you're using. This is going to help you build credibility amongst your candidates. So, for example, if I see that your mission statement says one thing, but on another channel I'm getting feedback that you aren't really living up to your mission, this is going to jeopardize your credibility and really break trust with the people that you're trying to attract. I've worked with a lot of clients who have a really strong consumer brand, but they don't even know where to start when it comes to their brand as an employer. And I always tell them that the best place to start is with your employees, because your employees really are your brand, and whether you know it or not, or whether they know it or not, they're already shaping the decision of your future candidates. So this is why it's really important to build brand ambassadors at your company. So a brand ambassador is someone who is thoroughly engaged, really connected, really committed to your organization, and I'm sure you're kind of thinking of some of your brand ambassadors right now. If you don't have those people top of mind, you can encourage employees to become brand ambassadors by letting them know how much you value their help and really how important it is to the success of the company. Just let them know that your people really matter. So some ways to get them on board. One, we always encourage that you have employees write reviews. Let them know that their voice, their opinion, their experience really matters and that you value their feedback. Employees really want to feel heard, and candidates want to know that you are a company who listens to your employees. We can encourage employees to upload their salary information, have them be a representative on their different social media channels, and also encourage them to upload pictures. So not just stock marketing photos, but have them share what the day-to-day life is like at your company. So maybe some company outings. If you do any activities, just give candidates a real look at what it's like to work at your company. And according to a Wishpond survey, which they're a social media marketing company, Facebook posts that include a photo are 120% more likely to generate likes, comments, and engagement than those posts that don't. Next, embrace transparency. So candidates value sincerity and transparency in an employer. So a little bit of a personal story of how I got to Glassdoor. I moved, this is years ago, but I moved from Chicago to San Francisco, and I took a job at a company. I'm not going to say which company, but I took them at face value during the interview process. And when I actually got there, the experience was not at all, what picture they painted for me. So I ended up leaving after a few months. It wasn't what I wanted, and it was really a lose-lose. They had to then backfill me, find a new person, train that new person. But had I read the reviews on Glassdoor first, I probably never would have taken the job, because it really did paint an accurate picture of what it was like to work there. And not saying that, it was a bad company, but it just wasn't the right company for me. So it's important to be transparent, be genuine, be authentic, because this is all going to help you find the right person for your organization. So developing a consistent employer brand, and I know I've kind of talked about this the entire time, but this is really the foundation of an effective recruitment marketing strategy. So having this strong reputation is going to lead candidates, or going to lead you to better quality candidates and really make hiring easier. If you don't define your brand, somebody else is going to, and your message is really, it's already out there whether you want it to be or not. So I'm not saying ignore the message, because part of your employer brand is really about the sentiment of your potential and current applicants and your employees. But it is important to add your perspective, and it's equally as important to pay attention to what's being said. So if your employees are defining your brand, and there's a disconnect between what's being said versus what you think your brand is, it's probably going to be time to reassess some things internally and make some changes. I was working with a client a couple years back who had an office in New York and an office in Atlanta. Most of their senior leadership sat in New York. HR, marketing, all sat in New York, but they were having a lot of trouble recruiting in Atlanta. And they were, I don't want to say a little delusional, but a little, I guess, ignorant of what was happening in Atlanta. And when they finally, got some feedback from employees, realized that their Atlanta employees weren't as happy as their employees in New York, it really caused them to make some changes, make sure that their employees in Atlanta were as happy as the rest of their organization, keep that message consistent. And in turn, it definitely helped, turn things around when it came to recruiting for that office. So why does all of this matter? It comes back to finding the right people, so the right quality talent for your organization. Because if you have the right people in your seats, they're going to end up being happier, they're going to be more productive, they're not going to leave after 3 months, and ultimately this is going to impact your company's bottom line. So spend some time thinking about the audience that you want to attract. I tell employers that the best place to start is to just look at the traffic that's coming to your different channels that you currently have. So know where candidates are going to research you, including your own career page. And some questions to think about when you're evaluating your traffic. Where are the conversations about your brand taking place, and who's doing the talking? And what's your audience doing in the social media spaces that you're interested in? How many users are viewing your job postings, on your careers page, on mobile? How many people are finding your careers page through Google, through just kind of a keyword search? Know which pages your candidates are visiting most frequently, and know how long they're staying. So all of this, all these different data points serve as a measure of your awareness and brand exposure. We have some deeper analytics on Glassdoor, which I'll get into in a little bit. There's a ton of different types of metrics available, and I know that it can really be overwhelming and you don't necessarily know where to start, but it's important to get your hands on some analytics so you can start to understand how is your recruitment marketing strategy working. So whether that be, tracking your social presence, job click activity, your source of hire, traffic to your Glassdoor profile or your own career site, it's just important to have your company's arsenal of analytics, and spend some time thinking about which analytics are most important to you. Really taking the time to do this is going to take the guesswork out of finding and retaining talent. So some key measurements that I hear from a lot of clients, just kind of give you an idea of sort of where to start. So candidate awareness, measure your influence over candidates, measure your page views, traffic, just kind of know who's coming, who your brand is resonating with, and how many people are aware of you. Quality of hire, so this might be job applicants to interviews, apps to hire. I've heard of clients measure quality by how long people stay, how good of a job they do once they get in the role, and then cost per hire. So think about what sources are you spending on, which channels are providing your hires, which channels are influencing your hires. Also, know the cost of a bad hire, because it's much more than, oh, I spent, X amount of dollars on a job board, but, if you get a bad hire in the door, what does that mean for your organization at large? And lastly, time to hire, how long does it take to fill a role? How could you be more effective in your hiring? Kind of see some gaps, maybe it's time to hire per position, that sort of thing. Other KPIs that I've heard from clients, so looking at their improved offers accepted, new hire retention, and an increase in employee referrals, because employee referrals really speak to your employer brand. If you're making efforts to have some brand ambassadors, this is really going to speak to how well that's working. Okay, so looking at some of the analytics that we actually provide to our clients on Glassdoor, this graph that we're looking at right now is basically showing your traffic month over month on your Glassdoor profile. So knowing how many people actually have your company top of mind and what that demographic breakdown looks like is really important. Just thinking about, is this actually the audience that you're trying to attract? Is it a different audience? Where are your gaps? And also, how does your awareness stack up against the companies that you compete with for talent? We have a ton of data and analytics around being able to benchmark yourself against the competition. This is really going to give you an edge. This is going to let you know your company's strengths and weaknesses. So this is kind of breaking down your employee sentiment, culture and values, career opportunities, compensation. Know how you stack up against those other companies, because then as a recruiter, you're going to be able to basically preemptively speak to this and address any objections up front, and really play up your strengths. So it's important to keep a pulse on what your competitors are doing, because this is going to help you improve your own strategy, help differentiate you, and understand what's important to your ideal candidate. Last thing, it's important to know what's happening in the interview process. Are your interviews too hard? Are they too easy? Why are people rejecting your offers, or why are they kind of dropping out of your process? I'm a hiring manager here, and I'm really embarrassed to say that I've actually had, I've had some bad or not so great interview reviews here at Glassdoor, or one in particular that I'm thinking about last December. Unfortunately, it was a pretty fair review. It was tough to read, but it wasn't the best candidate experience, and it caused an internal conversation and helped us improve our process and me personally become a better interviewer. Okay, last thing before I hand it off to Giles. So looking at the power of a multi-channel approach. So passive and active candidates, they're going to interact with your brand very differently and at different stages of the candidate lifestyle. So when you're conducting a multi-channel recruitment marketing strategy, leverage search engines, social networks, job boards, whatever channel you're going to use, or think about different channels to engage candidates wherever they are online. And it's definitely important to keep that message consistent. So there's a ton of different marketing channels where you can share your employer brand and story. Here's a few examples and kind of what a holistic approach might look like. So it's important to think about, are you trying to reach passive and active candidates? But it's also important to think about the positions that you're trying to fill and know that the type of candidate is not going to research you in the same place either. So, keep that in mind, keep the message consistent. Yeah, that's really it for me. So I'm going to hand things over to Giles to take things a little bit further.
So there are effectively 8 different types of research that will help you deliver return on investment and understand a good recruitment strategy. So the first type of research is essential research into candidate insight. So being able to understand what your candidates, how your candidates are made up. The second type is in terms of attraction profiling. This is to understand where candidates go, what channels they use, what type of advertising attracts them, what type of messages attract them. It's almost a list of do's and don'ts for how to attract and how to build good recruitment advertising. So third type is about understanding how to segment your audience. If you know how to segment your audience, then you're able to start to do specific campaigns aimed at either, for example, IT staff, accounting staff, retail staff. The ability to target is so important within online recruitment, and the only way you're able to do that effectively is to have the data behind it. You can then look at audit and gap analysis, which is absolutely essential, because if you understand where you sit in the market, if you understand what you are doing, then you can instantly start to look for gaps. And again, one of the most important things is, so before you start a social media strategy, or before you start an SEO or a search engine strategy, to understand where you start to begin with is absolutely essential, because that will allow you to plan where you're going to. It also acts as a day zero benchmark, which allows you to measure return on investment. If you know that today you are getting 20% of your candidates through search engines, or through Glassdoor, or through LinkedIn, then in 3 months' time you can measure that and it's 30% or 30% of your placements. It allows you to build that ROI picture. Competitive analysis is essential, understanding how you compare to others. Brand perception, again, is another really important area and aspect of online recruitment research. Knowing how your brand is perceived is essential to know how to communicate your message. And this is a really, really important thing, because a lot of organizations will have a different view of themselves as the candidates. I think Enhanced Media is an amazing organization. Whether the candidates that come to Enhanced Media, having seen our advertising, having seen our website, having seen our market position, think the same, it's essential that I'm appealing to them. I'm not trying to hire people who already work for Enhanced. I'm trying to hire people who have a different perception, perhaps. Diversity and benchmarking, the final two. Diversity is a very, very hot topic for lots of employers at the moment, followed by the benchmarking, which is essential. The only way you can understand what you need to do is understand your position relative to the market. If I was to say to any client, your website scores 3 out of 5, that's only valuable if you know that your competitors score 2 out of 5 or 4 out of 5. So I'm going to literally, in sort of about 2 minutes, run through a couple of examples of these. So I hope you can see my screen with a couple of candidate profile examples on there. If not, Valerie, please move us forward. So the 2 blue diagrams show examples of candidate profiling. So understanding things like candidates' willingness to commute. Understanding things like candidates' willingness to relocate. This is particularly important if you are looking for highly skilled and possibly specialist candidates who won't necessarily be easily available in a local geographical area. Understanding candidates' work experience, understanding qualifications, again, absolutely essential. the way you attract a highly experienced late 50s senior accountant is very, very different to the way you would attract a graduate with 2 or 3 years experience. Understanding your audience is absolutely key to writing and creating the right message to them. So the next one that I hope you've got on the screen is an orange example. There's an orange example on the left-hand side. And that's an example of attraction analysis. We get asked all the time by organisations, well, where should I spend my money? Should I spend my money on LinkedIn, on Glassdoor, on Twitter, on Facebook? And the answer that we always like to give is it should not be something that comes from us, from you, or from any organisation. It should be something that comes from your candidates. If you know that 50% of your candidates are actively using Glassdoor as a reference for looking for roles, it becomes a no-brainer to use Glassdoor as a channel for attraction. If you know that only 10% of your audience are using Twitter and only 2% of your audience are using Pinterest, it becomes an equal no-brainer to not put the same level of investment into those. And it's understanding what your candidates do that enables you to spend your money most wisely. The example on the right, just so you can see it, is just a persona. I love using personas because it's a fantastic thing that you can then give to a digital marketing agency. So we work with lots of organisations that use us for research but don't use us for the delivery, and we can give this to a digital marketing agency and say, look, build your brilliant creative, but here is the data upon which you should base that creative. So it's not a blank sheet of paper. That's so, so important. The next one, which I hope you can see, is a map of the world, and this is just really fascinating. If you were trying to find the locations of liquid natural gas candidates, understanding where and how a niche area behaves is absolutely essential in order to be able to attract it. You can probably detect a theme through everything that I'm going through here, that it is about understanding your candidates. Everybody in recruitment, we've talked for years and years about the holy grail of one job advert that attracts one candidate that gets the job, that 1-to-1-to-1 ratio. Now, we'll never ever get to that, but the closer we can get to that, the better. The days of people having a global posting agreement with Monster and putting every job onto Monster, no matter how relevant, are long gone. The future is all about understanding your candidates, understanding your competitors, understanding the market. The next example, which I hope is on a slide which reads from Siemens, Atkins, Amic across from the left. Okay, I've been asked to make my slide full screen. There you go. Hopefully that means if I've been asked to make my slide full screen, it means that people can see it. That's good news. The big thing, this is an example of a client that was struggling to recruit people because they were losing out to competitors. Now, we've all experienced this. You find a set of brilliant candidates, you want to offer them the role, but for some reason they're going off to competitors. Now, understanding those reasons are utterly, utterly key to being able to attract those people. Really interesting little anecdote here. The Environment Agency, you'll probably see on there at 32%, very, very difficult to attract candidates to the Environment Agency. It's a public sector organisation which doesn't pay well within engineering as all of the other organisations. But what the Environment Agency did is they did some really strong competitor research. They understood the market and realised that actually they have a benefits package which puts every other organisation in the industry absolutely to shame. So that understanding where you sit in the market enabled them to change the way they position their adverts and no longer made it about salary, which they were going to lose. Every day of the week they were going to lose that, by making it about something that they could win because they understood the market, they were successful. Wrap up with just two. Diversity I want to talk hugely about. Diversity is either something that is absolutely essential to your organisation. If you really want to achieve an equal, diverse and wide community of candidates, you've got to start that at the beginning. There is no way you are going to be able to recruit equal candidates if what goes into the front of your pipeline is an unequal mix. The only way you'll do that is via almost reverse engineering, and that really is not a good practice at all. So understanding research is important. I just put this in very briefly to say about benchmarking. Because one of the big things that we do is we run the world's largest piece of online recruitment research to try to understand what candidates think. So that, again, going back to what I said earlier, if you know that your candidates think one thing, being able to place that in context enables you to plan. And it really is that important. If you are operating in a marketplace where nobody has a good careers website, you only need to be good to be the best. If you're operating in a highly competitive, really sophisticated market, you've got to know what everyone else is doing and what your candidates think in order to be successful. Now, that covers the research side of things. I'm not going to talk for nearly as long about the measurement. Just briefly, again, to just reinforce that if you have that research up front, you will simply save money. Best example I ever was given was one of my clients turned around to me and I said, so why do you spend money on research? I mean, thank you very much for doing so, but why do you spend money on research? And their answer was, if I can spend 10% of my budget to make certain that the other 90% works, that will be the best 10% of the budget I can spend. We'll touch on analytics in literally just 2 slides, just to explain that analytics has moved on. Analytics used to be, quick, gather as much data. Even we used to say, come on, get some data, get recruitment data. Almost everybody on this webinar now, I would imagine, has a volume of recruitment data. It's actually very, very easy to get too much recruitment data. Google Analytics can provide 10,000 different data points. That's not what you're looking for. What you're looking for is real return on investment through data. And I'm going to suggest, hopefully this resonates, but I'm going to suggest there are 4 ways you can achieve that. One is by proactive monitoring. There's some brilliant ways you can set Google Analytics up that will alert you to problems before they occur. They will alert you to benefits and opportunities in hiring before they occur. You can then set up some incredible dashboards in Google Analytics which answer recruitment questions. We go into lots and lots of Google Analytics dashboards that are set up for, how long do your visitors spend on site? How many pages have visitors viewed? That's not a recruitment question. A recruitment question is, why am I not converting IT candidates? How can I improve the conversion rate of accountancy candidates? Dashboards will help, and the analytics and analysis and reporting will put the meat behind that. And the last thing to mention is just in terms of conversion optimization. This is a really, really big thing that is occurring throughout e-commerce and is moving into online recruitment. Conversion rate optimization, traditionally, if you do a campaign and you convert and you hit 50% of your goals, the answer is to spend the same amount of money again to attract the same number of candidates again in order to fulfill the other 50%. If you could just increase your conversion rate, the average number of candidates that convert on a recruitment website is between 5 and 7%. If you could increase that to 10%, you would double the effectiveness of a recruitment strategy without in any way having to spend any more money. And that's what makes it exciting. That's what makes the analytics that Glassdoor provides so exciting. That's what makes the kind of work that we do with Google Analytics so exciting. It's about ultimately optimizing that conversion. And the very, very final point I'll make is just in terms of getting that data through the whole candidate journey. It's no good just understanding your recruitment website if what's coming into that recruitment website from your attraction channels doesn't work. There's no good understanding just how your recruitment website works if you don't have amazing data coming out of your ATS. It's about understanding to get real ROI. It's about understanding the full candidate journey. Now, that is a lightning tour through research and measurement, and hopefully backs up an awful lot of what Glassdoor have said in terms of how to put together a strategy that will work, how to get competitor data, how to get candidate data, and ultimately how to get a strategy that works by doing the research at the beginning, the measurement at the end, which means every single piece of activity will cost less and work more effectively. And I hope you saw most of those slides. I think I will now hand back. See how slickly that happens. Does anybody have any questions?
Hey Giles, I'm
Are you
happy I've got.
taking you on? Good stuff.
Hey, yeah, we've got the questions here. So I think we've got one here for Mallory, which we'll start with. What are some good examples on how to get your employees engaged to learn to leave more reviews?
That's a really great question. If you go to our employer website, which is glassdoor.co.uk/employers, we have a lot of templates, a lot of different ebooks about getting employees to leave some feedback, leave some reviews on Glassdoor, and there's templates in there that you can actually use to send out to your employees.
Great, okay. We've got a few more here. Next, we will go to Giles. What metric is most important to measure the candidate experience?
Okay, that's a very interesting question. I guess I always start with the singularly most important metric, which is hires. And then you work everything back from hires. So you work everything which is what can influence hires. So you can start by looking at source to hire, because that tells you what marketing channels are working. I then always look at the recruitment website to see how that has converted candidates, whether people have been engaged with the website, whether they've looked at multiple pages, what content they've looked at and how that has worked, and then look in the ATS to check the hiring experience. I always start with source, then recruitment website, then ATS. If that appears slightly, it's because you can't have a single metric. If you're combining it into a single metric, I would say engagement, which is a algorithmic combination of various other aspects. Sorry if that sounded a slightly.
Thanks, Giles. So a little bit like a tennis match. I've got another one here for Mallory. How do you get started on Glassdoor?
Another great question. So what I would recommend is getting signed up with a free employer account. That'll let you update some of the basic company information on your profile, and also log in to your employer center, which has some of kind of the basic data and analytics, where you can start seeing, how much traffic you're getting, and kind of, get started understanding who's engaging with your profile and who's engaging with your brand.
Great, thanks Mallory. So here's a really, really interesting one for Giles. How do you get your executive team on board to create a strategy around recruitment marketing?
That's a brilliant question. Right. My favourite way of doing this, there's two ways that we approach it. My favourite way of doing this is every chief executive, bar none, would have made a speech in the last year saying something along the lines of, our people are our success. Without our people, we have no business. And it is that fundamentally we grab hold of and say, well, look, if that is true, if genuinely your chief exec believes that the people are the most important part of this business, you have got to invest in getting the right people into the business. The other way of doing this is simply look on a financial perspective. It's interesting to say that the top performers, everybody knows the 80-20 rule, the top of performers will always add 80% of the bottom line to a business. So again, is it not worth investing the time and the effort to get that 20% of the best talent into your organisation? And the final one you can go to is simply on a pure HR and recruitment team basis and say, look, I have yet to ever find a recruiter who turns around and says, oh, I've got loads and loads of time. I'm not working very hard. Yeah, loads and loads of time. Every recruitment team is pushed. Every recruitment team has got too many irrelevant applications, got too many suppliers talking to them about things to do. They don't have the time to spend on the things they'd like to do, which is the innovation, the really, really smart candidate attraction. And it's not difficult to show via analytics and via research that if you do this right, you will end up saving time, saving cost, and getting better candidates. And they are the three things that every recruitment team and every executive team wants to achieve. Save money, save time, better results. And all of those are really easy to demonstrate if you can show, going through this is what you can do here, these are comparing the two different routes.
Great, thanks, Charles. Just one more before we go back to Glassdoor. What if you are a small company and you don't have a ton of budget to invest in branding / recruitment marketing?
Then arguably it becomes even more important to do things cleverly. That's the key thing, because almost the best companies are very often the ones with the smaller budgets, because they can't start spending £25,000 advertising on Twitter or doing a takeover LinkedIn campaign. So that's where understanding your market becomes absolutely essential. And there are lots of things. You've got to think that a lot of research can be done very inexpensively. So you have everything from the basis, desk research to find out and look at your competitors. There are different ways of doing research, some of which, don't get me wrong, there are some really brilliant, highly professional ways of doing research, but if you are working on a very small budget, there are shortcuts. One of the things that we do a lot is we say try and do an in-sourced, outsourced model. So even a consultancy like ours, there are some things which we are absolutely brilliant at, well spending a high day rate on. But if you can in-source some of the strategy, if you can in-source some of the work, then don't pay us or any other marketing agency to do what you can do internally. Possibly just get some guidance from your agency on how to do it, but do the legwork internally. And that, we're already seeing that in social media. We're seeing clients saving 50% of their social media budget by bringing the non-super specialist stuff internally.
Great, thanks so much, Charles. So we've got one more question that is for Mallory, and we're going to wrap up after that. So Mal, if I see a negative review posted on my profile, can I pay to have it removed? Do your clients get to monitor which reviews are posted?
Good question. So for the first part of the question, can you pay to remove reviews? No. Do your clients get to monitor which reviews are posted? I think that is asking if they can remove reviews, and the answer is no to that as well. Some things that we recommend when it comes to reviews. So first, if there's anything that you feel like doesn't meet our community guidelines, you can flag reviews. You can also respond to reviews, and I think another key portion is to get more reviews. A lot of clients that I'll talk to who maybe have only a couple of reviews on Glassdoor and feel like it's not really, a full representation of what their company's really like and what it's like to work there. I always recommend, use some of our resources, get more employees engaged, and get them sharing more feedback. And to the story that I shared earlier about kind of the negative review that I got from an interview, it's important to not be in denial, but, read your reviews, hear the feedback, and, kind of do some self-reflection and make any changes that you need to within your organization. I hope that answers that question.
Fantastic, thanks so much. So thank you everybody for joining the webinar this morning with Enhanced Media and Glassdoor. We're going to wrap everything up, and we hope that you have a great afternoon. Watch out for a recording of this webinar that we will be sending out, and hopefully we will see you again on one of our other webinars.